Hello, everyone. We here at the Hyperion Hub hope you and your loved ones are staying safe and healthy. The following podcast was recorded before the COVID-19 pandemic. We hope you enjoy it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Hyperion Hub, your meeting place for all things Disney. Now your hosts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. I'm John Alois, and I'm joined by Sean Degenhart.
Hi, John.
And John Redlingschafer.
Greetings.
This week we're trying a new segment. Other shows do Disney news. We're going to provide our Disney views. And what that is it could be anything in the world of Disney. A new movie that you watched or an old movie that you watched, which is what my Disney view is this week. I watched The Sword and the Stone for the first time, probably maybe 15, 20-ish years. I watched it on Disney Plus, and I got a new appreciation for the movie. As I watched it as a kid, I just remember kind of liking the music. The animation was a little bit strange. They had just gone to the Xerox format. And I did notice this time that you can see some of the in-between lines or some of the animation lines that showed up. One thing that I loved about the story was how Merlin was working with Wart and trying to get Wart to be better than what he was. I think in the movie, we don't know that Wart, or at least Merlin doesn't know that Wart is going to become King Arthur. He just knows he's destined for greatness, and nobody else around Wart believes in him. Wart is smart, and he's trying to become better than what he is, but even he doesn't believe that there's this ultimate greatness, that he will one day rule England. And this isn't something that I really picked up on as a kid. I just enjoyed the movie. But what a great message. And just thinking about it, it was very impressive to me. I don't know, when was the last time you guys saw the movie?
Oh, it's probably been 5 years ago.
Certainly longer for me, and I think the last moment I even thought of it was actually trying to pull the sword out of the stone in front of the carousel at Disney World.
And that's a great moment, it really is, but it's everything that leads up to that, and how Merlin actually is starting to get frustrated with him because he still doesn't believe in himself after everything that they've gone through. Great movie. I highly recommend it. That's what our Disney Views is going to be as we move forward. And now we're going to get into our main topic. And this week, we're talking about going to Disney parks or on a Disney trip in general. That can include a cruise or Adventures by Disney with a large group. And John, yeah, it sounds stressful, and trust me, it can be. I've done it, but you have a trip coming up.
17 of us will be heading to Florida, my wife's family. And at various times throughout the trip, we're actually going to meet up with a family friend. And so at times there will be upwards of 23 or 24 of us roaming around together.
Now, what,
Lord help us.
Yeah. So what is the first thing that scares you about that?
The matching shirts.
Oh, I hope my wife doesn't hear this.
These guys do wear matching shirts. They're great.
And they have all been ordered. Don't you worry.
We actually were in Walt Disney World at the same time they were last year. And so we ran into them in Epcot. Right. And we went to Animal Kingdom later that night for the after hours. And it was easy to find a Redlingschafer. They were glowing green, so It was wonderful.
Hey, you got 4 kids. You have to have some trick. But yeah, I mean, between the matching shirts here, the paranoia is going to set in probably the moment we all arrive, and there's the look of those that don't have the experience that we fortunately do of, so what's next? And how do we get there? And is everybody going to have a good time when we finally get there? We have a lot of young children that are going to be there, and my wife, bless her heart, she's planned all of this. That first moment where maybe something doesn't go perfectly, you think about it.
It's the expectations, I think, that the most dangerous part.
Have you ever done it?
Most we've done is 8, and that is my 4 girls and my parents. So that's a one-on-one ratio. We love that, and my parents have always said, we're just here to have fun. So they don't have any expectations, but I can't imagine going with a group of that many with that many people.
Back in 2009, we went down with my wife's family, her mom and her stepdad, along with her brothers and her sister and our brother-in-law and their 2 girls. And then we had family drive over from South Florida, from Fort Myers. And at one point in Epcot, we had 18 people. Now, that's not 23, but anything over like 7.
Let's be honest. Yeah. Over 4 can lead you to a little bit of panic at times.
And I'll give you my tips. But first and foremost, her family was heavily relying on us to provide as much information as they could. In fact, they live in St. Louis. They drove to central Illinois, and we flew out of Bloomington, Illinois, all together. They wanted to fly with us.
Man, the full experience.
Yeah, well, her mom and her dad did, but her sister and brother-in-law drove down. But at one point, her mom was making a statement like, "See, we wouldn't know where to go once we get off the plane." And I said, "Well, I'm just reading the signs, so you would have been fine at this point."
I'm in Orlando. Yes.
But more than that, I mean, we really wanted to share everything that we've experienced as much as we could anyway with them. So,
is there a problem? And I'll say this again, very blessed. We have our favorites. We have our go-to places. For someone, and this was one of our biggest challenges, was plotting, an itinerary. What are the things that someone who's never been or may only go once, what do we have to hit? Because we're biased, because we know.
Sure.
I think one thing all 3 of us know is you can go to Walt Disney World 30 times and not do everything.
Correct.
So if you go in with that mentality, then I think if you just show them the highlights of what you love about the place.
And I think everybody, I think it's a small world. When people think Disney World,
right.
What is it that they're thinking? It's a small world, Peter Pan, Space Mountain, some of those biggies, which you may or may not like, but everybody's got to do it once.
You're right. The timeless classics are there. And I think it also can even transcend into your, as silly as it sounds, your dining plan. Mm-hmm. We're sitting there going, well, if we do Chef Mickey's, okay, the food is the food. I'm not here to comment on that, But you hit 4 or 5 of the big characters at Chef Mickey's.
Oh, yeah.
And,
Sure.
and you do that versus, well, they're maybe not into Winnie the Pooh, so Crystal Palace may not be, but you overthink it. But you're right. The general theme of what do you think when you think Disney World? And that's what it's what you have to put.
Now, I don't want to ruin any plans, but something that we learned.
Wait a minute. No. This isn't what I want to hear.
Something we learned by day 2.5 was we're all not going to want to do the same things.
I agree.
And so we started saying, okay, this is when lunch is, and this is when dinner is. And unless we had a giant meal planned, like with reservations, if we were just going to a sit-down restaurant or a quick service restaurant, then we would say, meet us. You can meet us for lunch. This is where we're going. If you don't want to go there, that's totally fine. But setting expectations of we don't have to all be together at the same time all day long to appreciate being here together. So once we set those standards and said, we'll meet you here when, everything, all the stress just kind of melted away. There were times where it was just the 4 of us, my family alone. And the day that we went to Animal Kingdom, some of my wife's family didn't want to go to Animal Kingdom, even though they had never been there. They loved Epcot and the World Showcase so much they went back there. So, and that's fine. I mean, it was their vacation too. They even took a day off and went to the beach. We don't ever do that, but they did it. And
not Caribbean beach. You mean a different beach?
Yeah, exactly. They went to the coast, and that's great. That's part of their vacation. But as long as whomever is planning understands that you're not going to make everybody happy, and there are going to be times when you just have to split apart and just go do your own thing and meet back up, I think that really helped the trip.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's great advice, because there are going to be days where we have tried to build in, we have young kids. There's going to have to be nap time. We're not going to be able to do rope drop until, the kiss at the end of the night at Magic Kingdom. It's not going to happen. Our children, quite frankly, I would be in meltdown mode if I went 15, 16 hours in the June heat of Central Florida. But, there are days where we have one specific meal with that reservation, or then the 2 others, have something in your room. We're going to have groceries delivered. This is when we have to be where we have to be at this specific time. If you don't show, that's okay. And that makes perfect sense.
And we do that even when we're going with small groups as well. If we go with those family members from Fort Myers, they don't always want to do what we want to do. I took my dad in 2014, and he, there were times where he just had to break off and go on his own. He was a smoker. So we weren't just going to wait the entire time, because he smoked a lot. But it was just one of those things that we picked up as we went along, and it really helped the trip.
Well, I think you can even say that for, as you said, smaller groups. There are times when the 6 of us go that my eldest daughter wants to go with, pick a family member, sometimes my wife, sometimes me, sometimes, even if it's roaming around the resort, they may split off. And so you're right. And we have to allow, as the planners of the trip, we have to allow that independence. And that may be that first moment of, where are they going? Right. But it's okay because we know we have the reservation at Tusker House at 6. So go do what you want. I can, I push strollers around Animal Kingdom. It feels like it's 120 degrees in there some days. I get it. You need a break.
Okay, so there are wonderful, incredibly breathtaking moments with those large family members, and we'll get to that. But there can be some scary moments. And when we went in 2009, my daughter was only a year old at that time, or almost a year. So my wife left the Magic Kingdom around 7:00 to take her back to the hotel. And we were there with the rest of my wife's family. And we were walking down Main Street. And all of a sudden, I noticed my 3-year-old son was missing.
No.
Nowhere near us. Oh. And what happened was, we stopped for a half second, and he kept walking, and
easy to do.
Very not the tallest kid at 3 years old, and
really
melts into the crowd. Obviously, now he's taller than me at 14, but he loses me in crowds now. But he
we'll be hearing from him in 5 short years. The paranoia of losing your parent. Yes.
So it was not only was it a frightening moment instantly. And
Jolie was not with you, right?
Jolie went back to the hotel with our daughter.
Oh, no. Husbands of the world cringe together.
Yeah. Where's Evan is my son's name. And my sister-in-law immediately looks at me and says, I thought he was with you. And so my wife had taken the stroller back too. So I was just kind of holding his hand, and then he just kind of slipped away, and I looked and turned around and came back, and he was gone. Now, parade's getting ready to start. So there's, 20,000 people on Main Street, USA, and boom, the lights go out. It was at night. It was spectral magic.
Ah, yes.
And immediately you start thinking the absolute worst, But your main goal is to find him. Now, we tell this story all the time that we just started screaming his name, and Disney security came out of the woodwork, talking into their wrists. It was very impressive to see how quickly people showed up. And there were other guests helping us find him. But they don't stop the parade, So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And we're like, no, Evan! So we're screaming. And, everybody's sitting on the curb on Main Street. And my sister-in-law is hurtling over people. Her name's Noelle. She's very athletic. She was jumping.
See, I don't like those people that try to box me out when I got a good spot for the parade. I don't like her already.
We tell this part of the story, too. People save up for Disney trips for a long time, and they've got their video cameras out. And somewhere there's a member of every person of our family screaming into that video camera my son's name. So very scary. Eventually, he walked up to us with a cast member, and he was sobbing, and he had wandered off into the confectionery. So
there are worse places to go.
Exactly. Yeah. He knew to look for the name tag. And we found each other on Main Street. They actually took us back behind the jewelry shop and let us just kind of calm down.
Good.
They knew we're big Disney fans. At one point, they brought over some extra bulbs from the parade, from Spectro Magic, as collector's items. Just out of nowhere.
So I need to tell my 7-year-old I act lost. Yeah, that's just what I was thinking. Wait a minute.
We learned a lot about that because I shared that story on the Disney boards and various fan sites, and I didn't realize all the different things that happen, unfortunately. And Fortunately, we don't have any record of any kids being taken from Disney parks, but they tell you different things to look for. And they were, they could have been a few minutes away from shutting the park down because we had been looking for them for a while. But people sent in tips from those stories. And for about the next 5 to 6, 7 years, we had a name tag on their back of their shirt of my wife's phone number and my phone number, our cell phone numbers. We took pictures of them every single morning
with the clothes they were wearing.
With the clothes they were wearing, yep. On the back of their shirt, on the back of their jacket, inside their jacket, whatever. And came up with meeting places from that point on. Unfortunately, we had to learn the hard way, but it was really traumatic, as you can imagine.
Oh, yeah. How long was it that he was?
Probably, it felt like 25 minutes.
Right.
It was probably 7-ish. It was, that's a
long
significant time for a 3-year-old, you know? But that's one of the bad sides to going with a lot of people, because everybody thinks they're all watching the little ones. And if you go with 2 or 3 people, you're watching the little ones. But there are those incredible moments where you get that wonderful picture that lasts forever. I've gone with people who in my family who've passed away, and this is our special place. So to be there as one big family and have that picture in front of the castle or in front of the tree or wherever you are is something you hold on to forever. And wonderful memories, obviously.
Well, that's the kind of I like ending on that note, because that's the goal of this trip that we're going to take. And I will tell you that for every moment of paranoia or just maybe shuddering that you have, those moments are what kind of carry you through. And I think there will be some trials and tribulations, on day 4 or 5 when everybody's exhausted and half of people vote for a pool day and the other half said, I'm going back to World Showcase or something. But you're right. I have pictures in my home on the wall of those who are no longer with us. And you have and you cherish all of that. My wife is very good about making books on Shutterfly. And to have all of those memories is something that, I sincerely will treasure this. There's a chance that with that many people that one or more of my wife's siblings, maybe they move even farther away. And so this may be that one time where we can all do it. Let's take advantage of it before everybody's schedules get busy. Some of us are already busy enough. And so I think the more positive spin you can put on it, convince yourself to do it, I think it'll come through in spades for you.
And you're going to have to give us a report after. You can change names
of who we lost
to protect the innocent. But you'll have to give us an update when you get back.
I think that will be definitely something I will run through the sensor at home, but I look forward to that update.
If any of you listeners have any thoughts for John you'd like to share with him, any tips, you can email us at podcast@thehyperionhub.com. I'm sure he'd appreciate that.
Keep it clean. Or any tricks that you may have to get us through a particular day.
Yeah, good point. To avoid.
Absolutely. Until next time, thanks for joining us on the Hyperion Hub. Have a great week, everybody.
We're glad you could join us. We'd love to hear from you. You can email or send us a recorded audio message at podcast@thehyperionhub.com. Find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. The Hyperion Hub is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company or its subsidiaries. We'll meet you next time at the Hyperion Hub.